As we always kick off the show, I want everybody to take a moment and think about what Goldilocks reminds you of. To me, Goldilocks is all about balance because she didn't want anything too hot. She didn't want anything too cold, right? She didn't want anything too hard. She didn't want anything too soft. And to me, that epitomizes the balance we need to drive the kind of change and influence the change we want to see. Welcome to Unleash Inner Goldilocks, How to Get It Just Right. So excited to have you all back today. Some of you are joining for the first time. Some of you are coming back. So it's always wonderful to have as many enthusiastic participants as possible. I'm super excited about today because we have people from all over the world. We have Chile represented. We have Belize represented. We have United States represented on the Zoom call, and on Facebook Live, we have Sri Lanka and India represented. So welcome, everybody. And as always, we want to make sure that you feel comfortable, you are able to participate in this in a constructive way and actually engage in a meaningful way. This is not just for the guests to talk, but it is also an opportunity for all of you to engage and make this a meaningful experience. As we kick this off, did I get everybody in? Yes, everybody is in. So as we kick this off, I want to make sure that we are aware by participating, you're all giving your consent. This is a recorded event. This is being live streamed. Wanted to make sure everybody's comfortable with that. And let's just take a moment and think about what Goldilocks means to us. The show is called Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, How to Get It Just Right. What does Goldilocks mean to you? To me, Goldilocks symbolizes balance. Remember the Goldilocks story where she didn't want it too hot, she didn't want it too cold? She didn't want it too hard, she didn't want it too soft, right? So she symbolizes centeredness from which we can grow. Why is centeredness important? There is years of research that shows that we can each only influence 3 levels from where we are, right? So think about it. 3 levels from where we are is all we can influence. So if I'm trying to influence from the top, I can only impact 3 levels down. If I'm going to influence from the bottom as an entry-level person, I can only influence 3 levels up. But what if I am in the middle? I'm leading from the middle. I am able to influence 3 levels up, 3 levels down, and my own level. I have 7 degrees of influence when I'm leading from the middle. Why is that important to understand? Because all issues can be either extreme, right? I can say it's black or white, or I can decide, you know what, maybe it's a shade of gray. Whatever issue it is, right? So when I come from that middle ground, I can build consensus. I can influence 7 degrees. And therefore, I am able to accomplish what I need to at a much greater level. Because in life, we don't get to tell people what to do. We only have an opportunity to influence other people, and through them, we accomplish what we need to accomplish together. Right? Even if it is, I want to look for a job, even if it is, I need a favor from somebody, I need to understand where that middle ground is. Because if it's not a win-win opportunity, people are not going to engage, right? Would you participate in something where you lose and the other person wins? No. Why? What's the point, right? So the centeredness becomes so important, and the entire theme of the show is to remind us that we need to take a page from Goldilocks, and only then we can get it just right. So with that centeredness in mind, let's actually think about what today's show is. Today is about building self-awareness and social awareness for our success. That means we're going to do that from that centeredness position. Not only what I want and what I want now, but how do I engage in a way that I am aware of me and everybody else around me so that I am going to be successful by influencing as many people as possible and winning hearts and minds of as many people as possible. If we don't approach life with a purpose, we're going to miss the boat, right? Last time we touched on this topic as we talked about communicating with purpose. I just want to reiterate this today because as we build self-awareness and social awareness, we need to do it centered on our purpose, right? My purpose is going to drive me. My purpose needs to remain congruent in everything I do. Only then I am going to be authentic. What is that sweet spot of purpose? It's what I love. So what you love to do, what you're great at, and what the world needs. At the intersection of all three is where your purpose is. Can you see that centeredness actually being more meaningful, not just for you, but for somebody else? So if you are coming from a place of you love it and you're great at it, you're going to be right here, right? But that is not going to help anybody else engage with you because there's nothing in it for them, right? You're great at it and the world needs it. You're going to go do it, but you're never going to be happy because you don't love what you're doing, right? Or you love to do something and the world needs it, but you're not good at it. You're not going to have a good career in that field, right? So anytime you pair only two of these up, it's not going to work. So part of today's journey of self-awareness is for you to understand what you love and what you are great at as part of this journey. And then the social awareness part is truly understanding what does the world need and how can you best engage in the centeredness between you and the world around you so that when you come into the world to engage, there is purpose for you and there is meaning to everybody else. Self-awareness and social awareness are two parts of a larger emotional intelligence component. The awareness part is actually giving us the ability to recognize who am I being and how am I engaging with other people, right? And then the part we're going to cover next week is the relationship part with myself. How am I managing myself and how am I building relationships with others? That is how am I regulating what I know in a way that what am I doing? Okay, so today we're going to talk about what am I being and who am I being. Next week we're going to talk about, with that understanding, what am I doing and how am I showing up. When I go through this process of self-awareness and social awareness, also keep in mind that we are driven by basic emotions. Happy is the only positive emotion we feel, right? The rest of it is we can be sad, we can be angry, we can be afraid, we can be ashamed. All the feelings we have, depending on the intensity of low, medium, and high, fall into one of these 5 categories. And understanding what we are feeling and what's triggering our feeling and how am I recognizing it and how am I managing it is very important. What happens when I'm angry? I don't get angry, furious angry all of a sudden, right? It's built up. So if something makes me touchy or something is making me irritable, that's low-level anger. Can I recognize that and can I address it before I blow up in a workplace situation or in a family situation, right? If I'm feeling upset, what do I need to do before I get to a point of depression where I can't handle it, right? So part of being self-aware is understanding. These emotions are all normal, by the way. If we don't feel these, we're not human, okay? So the issue at hand here is, or the charge at hand here is not stopping to feel these, truly allowing ourselves to feel it, recognizing it, and being able to handle it appropriately. With that, I would love to bring on our guests, Kristen and Marquell. Kristen is a enthusiastic individual who loves to learn and is self-introspect. But the one thing I love about her is her curiosity to learn and grow just brings everybody else along for that journey. I have been in situations with Kristen where she is so good at rallying the troops and bringing them along for the journey that even people who showed up for not too enthusiastic is already there, right? So I am hoping that you are going to love talking to her and getting insights from her and sharing some of your insights with her so that this is truly going to be a win-win opportunity. And Marquell is somebody who truly believes in working at the intersection of politics, technology, and entertainment to drive progressive social change. As you can see from the picture, he's all about doing things for the greater good and getting involved in making this world a better place. And even today, after this event, he is going to be working on a community event where it's called Raising Vibrations, bringing people together through music. And he has worked with the NBA. He just finished up his internship with Orlando Magic. And he works with law enforcement and Action Coach Global to truly create valuable teaching moments for youth leaders for tomorrow. Please welcome Kristen and Marquell.
Thank you, Cass.
So as we get started, I would like Kristen to take a moment and share with the group about what took you on a journey of introspection and self-awareness. What triggered it and what have you learned about you through that journey?
Okay, so thank you, Cass. I'm happy to be here. I started my inner journey 22 years ago. I was 15 years old and my dad left our family abruptly and unexpectedly. And so being a teenager, I'm still grateful every day that I didn't go into maybe numbing the pain with like alcohol and drugs, because as a teenager that would have been very easy to do. Instead, I got into reading very spiritual, new age, power of the mind, positivity books, just to cope with the unknowns and the uncertainty and just the new dynamic of what our new family was without my father. So I have a lot of book recommendations, and what's interesting is most of them were written in the late 1800s and early 1900s, but the thoughts are so progressive and so powerful, they hold true even more so today. And so I've continued that journey, and I work with Cass, and we've done the Enneagram journey, and I love that. I've gotten a lot of good insight there. And that's funny, we did that last year, and at 36 years old, I learned things about myself that I was shocked and I was surprised, like, oh wow, that's why I've done that my whole life, So that was very, very helpful. And going off of what you said, Cass, I found a quote the other day, but I don't have the source to cite it, but it actually said, and this goes off of what you were just speaking about, when you understand who you truly are, you work on what's meaningful to you and bring your energy and light to the world. This is what the world needs from you. And I just think that's perfect because it's exactly what you were saying before. So I had some thoughts I'd like to share, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, I think the biggest part of self-awareness is realizing that script or that narrative that's always going on in our heads all day. I know for me, my mental chatter is going on all the time. And a lot of times there's some negative self-talk going on in there. I think as humans, we all have insecurities or self-doubts. And I think it's really important, and it's an active skill. It's not something I've mastered yet. I don't know if it can be mastered, but I think it's something you have to practice every day, is to be aware of the negative self-talk, anything that might limit you, and stop it and replace it with something positive. So I would say go from the mindset of I can't to I can to I will. So if you're like saying I can't succeed, no, change that to I can and I will succeed, or whatever way you want to imagine that, anything from negative to positive to affirmative. I think it's really important. And I think there's a couple different ways where we have self-limiting thoughts. Sometimes it's environmental. Maybe we grew up in poverty and we think we're not going to be able to overcome that. But if you can get past that negative thinking, I really believe anything you believe you can achieve. with hard work and dedication and effort, of course, but I do think it's possible. Pharrell Williams is one of my hometown heroes because he's from Virginia Beach, and he said a quote, I'm sure everybody knows him, right? He's the singer who sings that song Happy, but he said, I went from section 8 to this section of the beach, meaning he didn't allow his environmental circumstances to keep him down. And he's not only a singer, I mean, he's a rapper, producer, fashion mogul, he's so many things. So thank God he was able to get past those, limiting beliefs or whatever. I think the other way is, again, anything that says, I'm not educated enough, I'm not experienced enough, I'm not smart enough. For me, I have been in the corporate world for more than 12 years, and I love what I do, and I've thankfully moved up along the way, and I'm very grateful for that. But honestly, if I would have believed society's bias that says you can't work in the corporate world without a college degree, I wouldn't be where I am today, because I made a choice, even though I was a straight A student and got multiple scholarships to go to college. Very early on in my college education, I realized it wasn't for me, and I chose to walk away from the college education. I'm not saying that education isn't important, obviously it is, but for me, it wasn't the right choice for me. It wasn't the right fit for my life. But if I would have believed that I couldn't go forward, I probably never would have applied in any corporation. So, and the third thing I think we can limit ourselves is if we believe if you only went to school for finance, that you're only going to do finance your whole life. And that's fine, you can if you want to, but who's to say you can't become a marketing genius or a hairdresser or a mechanic? You can really do anything you want as long as you believe in yourself. And I think that's where it comes into play, is you have to have that belief first. And I think if you conquer your mind, then you can conquer your environment. And then the next thing that I think is really important is kind of what you were talking about, Cass, and this goes into social awareness of, I think we need to celebrate each other's differences. And by doing that, we really do grow. And that's the only way we can achieve great things. But I also believe in celebrating other people's successes. Because I think when I see, when you see a colleague winning or succeeding at something, I think it's so important, instead of being bitter or jealous, which I know sometimes it is hard, that's human nature, but I think it's life's way of showing you and reminding you that like possibilities and opportunities are out there. And if your colleague can do it, why not you? Why not you? And I actually heard a analogy recently, and again, I'm sorry, I don't remember the source, but it stuck true with me. It said, so imagine I won the lotto tonight and I woke up tomorrow a multimillionaire. Would that make Oprah any less rich? No. Why? Because there's enough of the good stuff to go around for everybody. So, anyone can have it. You just got to go after it. And I think, again, conquering the self-limiting beliefs and then coming together, be a creator, a collaborator, not a competitor. Be there for each other, because we're all in this together. We're all humans. Life is hard. It's messy. And I think we have to lift each other up. And I think that's the collaboration part and social awareness of the togetherness. And also I wrote down, I'm looking at my notes, I wrote down things that are important, I think, are having enthusiasm in everything you do, especially your work. And, there's days I don't feel enthusiastic, but that saying, like, fake it till you make it. If you force yourself to smile before you realize it, your brain is now tricked and you're feeling better and you're happy and excited. I think it's so important to have that enthusiasm in anything you're doing. And obviously hard work and effort. I think anytime you put hard work and effort out there, coupled with enthusiasm, I think you're just going to get rewards and results. And a word that always used to confuse me was confidence. I always thought that meant like being, snobbish, but no, confidence is really just a belief in yourself and your abilities, coupled with humility and grace. But it's the polar opposite of arrogance. To me, arrogance is when you're basically dividing you and someone else, saying I'm better than you. And so that's like the division that I think we need to eliminate. It's important to come together, be a collaborator, not a competitor. So confidence, just believe in yourself, with grace and humility. And all that being said, I believe your vocation should be like a vacation. And I've been blessed, and I'm so grateful that for 16 years now, I have loved what I do every day that I've woken up, and I'm forever grateful for that, because we spend more time in our jobs than we do really anywhere else, more waking hours at least. So it's very important to pursue things that really interest you. Like Cass said, and that will make your vocation feel like a vacation. You will enjoy going to work every day, instead of just saying, oh my God, these next 8 hours, I can't wait to clock out and be done with it. And And again, I'm human too. So like I said, full disclosure, I have days where I'm not excited to go to work. Trust me, I'm not going to act like I've mastered this. No. And Cass, you know, I've talked to you before, you know, and that's why it's good to have a coach too, like to pull you back and get you back on track and be like, okay, snap out of it. Come on, remember all the good stuff. Like, let's get the vibe up again. Let's get the good vibrations going. But, you know, another thing is doing something that you love, finding something, pursuing a passion that really interests you is going to keep you motivated, and it's going to cause you to be a top performer and excel at what you're doing. I've heard people make comments about other coworkers and say, well, they're just not performing that well because, you know, they're not that educated. And I'm like, education has nothing to do with it. They're probably bored. They're not motivated. It's not about education levels. I mean, education is very important. Don't get me wrong, please. I'm just saying it really comes down to your drive and your motivation and what excites you. So if you're excited about something, you're going to go for it. Talking about the I can't, and what excites you and what's not. Cooking is something that doesn't excite me at all. So I always say, I'm like, Mom, I can't cook. I'm not even going to bother. And she's like, girl, can you read? Yeah, if you can read, you can cook. And she's right. I could read a recipe, but it doesn't interest me, so I'm not going to do it. But, you know, if I wanted to, I could cook, and I would. But so, yeah. So that's just a few little pieces of, I don't know, wisdom I've kind of taken in along the years. And I love learning new things. Cass teaches me something. Every time we talk, I say, Cass, you give me so much wisdom and knowledge. And would you like me to share some of the books that I would recommend now?
We'll come back to that, Kristen.
Okay.
We'll come back to that. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. And there was a lot of nuggets there for everybody to take away. So we will build on that as we go.
Okay.
And so now I would like to turn to Marquell. Marquell, you have been on this journey from your university days or even prior. What made you step into the self-awareness journey at a young age? And how has it shaped your present and how is it shaping your future?
Yeah, I'd like to just piggyback off Kristen. I hate that. I hope my mom doesn't see this because I say the same thing about cooking. So say in the kitchen as soon as this is over. But yes, I'm thank you for having me on here. I'm really excited to just have the conversation and to learn. And I think that was being a student is at the centerpiece of everything that I'm doing, everywhere that I've been. How can we flip being a student and into being a leader, right? So in order to lead, you have to follow at some particular point. And I was privileged to grow up where I did, where there were successful families around me. I saw people that looked different, that thought different, that executed differently than I was able to. And I learned how to apply it to myself. And it really didn't take off for me until I left the country. I went on a trip going into my junior year of high school. I went to Europe and I was there for a month. And in just a month's time of seeing a different part of the world, to see how people live, how they love, how they laugh, how they exercise, how they utilize family time, how they celebrate differences. I'm like, whoa, this is really foreign. So, you know, we look at language and like, oh, I don't speak that language, so whatever. But like, no, I spend time with my family. I play basketball. I watch television. How can we, you know, use the same things that other folks in the world are and adopt them to make things progress and advance for us? And that was really, really mind-boggling to me. So when I came back to the United States, my junior year, I just sat back and learned, listened. I got into engagements. I did things around the community that I wouldn't typically do. I will put myself in inferior situations just to learn. I want to be the most uncomfortable so I can grow. And a lot of people don't understand that just because you're uncomfortable with something, especially like in a classroom or learning situations, doesn't mean you're dumb, doesn't mean you're stupid, doesn't mean you're slow. You have to be unique and creative with the way that you're looking at the picture. And that was what I had to teach myself. The greatest person in the room, the most valuable person in the company to me is the one person that can look at the same picture as everyone else is and see it from multiple angles. It's the greatest gift, I believe. And with that in mind, so also what Kristen said about the I can versus I can't, I look at like, how can I? We don't get that opportunity in school. We don't get the opportunity in the working world because it's about production. And when you have someone to say, whoa, is there a way that we can figure out this complex issue and turn the tide. One of my things have been education. I love Afrocentric culture in the education realm because it's about collaboration, also about the individual. It's about using every part of the body, not just sitting and learning from someone telling you information for 50 minutes, hey, and regurgitate it through an ABCD test. Because they're much more than that, right? Some people might want to sing. Some people may want to create a dance. Some people may want to perform their learning. Some people want to show it through cooking. Some people want to show it through football. It's so many things that the world, like just nature, provides to us that we can use to further our education, to further what we know and what we don't know. And that has been the greatest, I think, strength for me as well, is slowing down to say, how can we, and figuring out the strengths and weaknesses of people to see how we can use our individual likeness, our individual strengths and weaknesses to complete the story, complete the picture. And it's been really, really, really helpful.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Marquell. It's important for us to know that each of us take this journey differently, right? We take it differently. We take it for a different purpose. But ultimately, one way or the other, are you seeing that there are similarities in the way you've been thinking? Not identical, but you've taken a similar path once the realization came, right? And Marquell made a point about how everybody around us just want to produce, right? Think about that for a moment. When we try to reach out to somebody for help, did we truly build a relationship with them ahead of time? Or when it was the right time to build relationships, we thought, there's nothing they can do for us. Why waste time, right? We ourselves are guilty of it, right? Employers always ask employees, what have you done for me today? Are those the right questions? If we truly are coming from that purpose perspective, then we are collaborating and building relationships because those are the right things to do, right? And then we have our network to draw from if and when things go wrong. But otherwise, hey, we can have a good time and continue to learn from each other and have a celebration, right? There is no harm, no foul. But are we looking at that as true investment? Even simple things like, oh, I need to go and learn about this because it's going to help me become a better person. And what is our self-talk? Oh, I don't have time for it. Oh, that means I can't do that. Oh, this means I can't do this, right? That negative self-talk that Kristen mentioned is going on inside our heads. Why? From the time we are born, people are telling us what to do, what to think, how to be, right? How many of us haven't been told you're too dark, you're too fat, you're too ugly, or your eyes are too big, or you're that, or you're this, or you talk too much, or you don't talk enough, right? How do we find a way to get all of that out? How do we get that out of our system, and how do we start putting positive things in place? That is the million-dollar question when we start thinking about self-awareness. And David Johnson, are you there? I wanted to make sure I give you an opportunity to speak up too, because I'd invited you to come for the show today.
I am here. Here.
So with that, I would actually like to open up the opportunity for you to share with the team, not only your journey of self-awareness, but how are you, through your organization, helping other young people have that?
So first of all, I had to help my extra young people, my kids, get out of the house today so I could do this. I have a almost 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old that would be crawling on my face as we speak and saying hi to all of you if they were on here.
Oh, that would have been perfect.
Appreciate you just creating this space and allowing a moment for folks to kind of explore some of this stuff, because I know, with working at home and spending more time in the same place, you'd think you'd have more time to do this interpersonal work, but a lot of times it's less time. So for me, I mean, as an artist and as a creative, I've worked as a commercial and editorial photographer for the last 12 years. And it's been one of those things where any success that I've experienced has been because of what other folks have invested into me, and taking that time to, like you're talking about, help me identify, you know, who I am and how to use the purpose that I then identify. For me, one of the most powerful statements that one of my mentors said to me, and I know it's a quote from somewhere else. I'm with Kristen. I don't know where the source was. But he told me that at the intersection of your gifts and the needs of others, you find the seeds of your calling. And for me, that has really been the compass that has kind of directed how I decide to use my time, that wherever my gifts are and the overlap of what others need, I can operate in that space. And I know, Dr. Cass, we've talked about that a lot. What does that look like for me? So right now, what I do, we started an organization called True Chicago, where the whole idea is creating a space where young creatives and artists can overlap with some of those purpose-finding qualities in their creative gifts. So take creative leaders, folks that have already achieved that, folks that are already kind of operating in that self-awareness and using that to the highest power for their gifting. And then we take young people who are trying their best to identify that and trying to see, can I make a life in a creative space? Even though I may not have a lot of the same resources, even though I may not have a lot of the same opportunities that the rest of the world has, can I do this? So we found, you know, if you want to be an accountant, if you want to be a dentist, if you want to be a lawyer, there's tracks that you can get on and you can step by step get yourself there. Well, in the creative space, that's not really that true. There aren't traditional steps that you take. And so a lot of times young people that have real creative talents, we come from, you know, the city of Chicago, the greatest city in the world. And a lot of that is because of the creative genius that has come out of it. I mean, you have all the way back from Nat King Cole to, you know, fast forward one of Marquell's guys, Kanye West, all of these creative geniuses that we have, and they come from Chicago. And the crazy thing is a lot of those folks come from, you know, spaces that are under-resourced. And my challenge is now, and the challenge of True Chicago is now you see a whole new generation of young creative people that may not have the leadership and the chance to do that inner work that we're talking about that will help them identify that purpose. So with True Chicago, we're trying to create a space where we can bring in the ingredients of wisdom and bring in young people that need that wisdom in order to grow. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Oh, no. We're just having a conversation. That was very, very helpful and insightful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, David.
No problem.
So building on the work of True Chicago, I would like to go back to Marquell and ask you about the work Pure Alchemy is doing and how Pure Alchemy is truly taking the role of learning and growing and doing it through music. Because there are three things that unite people regardless of where in the world we come from and what language we talk, right? Food, music, laughter. If you hear laughter, if you smell food, if you hear music, you're naturally drawn, right? You don't need to speak the language. You don't need to understand the culture. Words are not needed. At a time where people are so divided and polarized in this world, especially in the United States of America, while the rest of the world is watching saying, what is going on up there, right? How are you and your organization, Marquell, how are we making sure it's being brought together? And what is the vision there? And how are we going to help them take this journey of self-awareness and social awareness to truly bring about the social change we need?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of piggyback off something really important that David just said.
Please
about
do.
inner work. So this is just a challenge for everyone. And I'm not even a master at it, but this is just something I found in therapy that was really helpful to my social awareness and self-awareness. If you think back to your formative years that you may not be able to remember to when you were 1 year old, but how you felt to things as a kid, right? When your mom told you, no, you can't have cookies, or, you know, your dad worked so much that you didn't see him. What was your response to it, right? So it was shared with me that no one ever leaves their childhood without some type of trauma, ever. And something that could be not feeling good enough, not feeling appreciated, so many things, whatever that is for you, you discover that. The parent comes in and protects the child, the trauma. You know, when something doesn't go your way, you respond how, right? And the parent comes in and say, oh, it's okay, it's going to be okay, or whatever, et cetera, but doesn't really do the teaching. The adult is you, who you are today, right? So how do you, as you are, or as you present it today, talk to the child of then? Hey, when someone leaves, it's okay because they have other things to do. Or if you presented an idea and your team shut it down, they're not saying that they don't think that you're not important or they don't undervalue you. They just, you know, decided to go a different direction. Those are the more intelligent conversations that we can have once we're willing to acknowledge the traumas that we've had in our formative years that can come back and find themselves in our relationships with ourselves, relationships with our friends, our neighbors, our jobs, so on and so forth. And I think that that is very, very important. And the undertone of that is I started to do this deep digging maybe 2 years ago, and it wasn't something that was practiced in my community. In the Black community, going to get a therapist, understanding trauma, what does that even mean, you know? But the more and more that folks are able to sit in that chamber of the trauma and understand that it's just something that has happened, how do you choose to respond in your adult form is very, very important. And it's just my open challenge to everyone in their own time to think about how you responded to some of those things. And do they come up today? Do they show up at work? Do they show up in relationships? And how can I respond now knowing better in today's time?
Thank you, Marquell. Do you want to build on that to the other question, or do you want to move on?
I like that, but sure. Pure alchemy. So pure alchemy, I started to do a lot of my work in middle school. So my first event was after the earthquake in Haiti, I believe in 2010. And I sat back with some of my friends and I'm just like, how can we have an impact in our local community to understand how to bring folks together, right? And I hate bringing people together through tragedies because, you know, at some point, you know, God loans us people and he's going to want them back some point, right? And we may not be ready for it, but it's going to happen. So how do we come together? How do we participate in building a community in celebration, in spirits, and understanding the differences, understanding other people's plights? And we did a basketball game with staff and students. Students and staff didn't interact as much until we brought them together through basketball, through music. And it was so cool to see. And I'm like, is there something else here I'm missing? Is there something else that I could use this energy to apply elsewhere? And so through high school, I would do events. I would speak a little bit here and there. I started to do social emotional learning teaching. I played basketball. Before our basketball games, I would go to the local middle schools and elementary schools and do some type of social emotional teaching. And it was so cool because I'm like, wow, like I never knew that I could feel this way about something that's just not basketball, that's not music. And I did. And with that, it helped me combat some of our adults in the school saying, hey, if you don't get a 36 on your ACT, or if you don't graduate with a 4.0 GPA, you won't be successful. And I was like, what does success mean? Does success mean to me to have a big home that I can't afford? Or does it mean for me to have a small home that I can afford to spend time with my family? And I'm like, now we have to understand what success is. And it's followed me all the way through my years in college where I started to speak, do perspective speaking. I like saying perspective because it's just my perspective. At the end of the day, I'm no genius. And it helped us build pure alchemy, like-minded individuals coming together to unite the ideas of tomorrow today, focusing in education and social impact, being able to have intellectual curiosity around the table and ask a question, how can I, how can we? And once we figure out the how can we say we can. And we break down the walls by inviting difference of opinions, difference of perspectives to build with us to tackle whatever it is of interest to us in the realm of social impact and education.
Thank you for sharing that, Marquell. I want to build on a couple of things that all three of you have mentioned in different forms. So it is true that we all have trauma. Those of you who have gone through either therapy or Enneagram is the coaching process through which you identify where you are in that stage of trauma, and then how do you build a whole person. Think of yourself as somebody who has a heart, mind, and a body. At the point of trauma, I'm going to tell you a story just to paint a picture of what that inner childhood trauma feels like. Imagine that you are an explorer and you are exploring the world and you're in Siberia and you get caught in a winter storm. Okay? What do? You build yourself an igloo and you get in there, because once you're inside the igloo, the temperature is capped at 32 degrees, right? So you're at the freezing temperature, you're warmer than the outside, and you're protected from all the things that are happening outside with the storm, right? The storm continues for a day, 2, 3, 4, moves on to a week, right? Just like it was in our childhood. But what you realize is the igloo that you built that gave you shelter and protection that first day, now every breath you take is coating the inside of that igloo and thickening the walls and making that space kind of close up on you, right? So if we don't do the inner work, we're going to trap ourselves in that inner trauma, and we allow that igloo, whatever protected us at that moment in our childhood, that way of thinking and that way of interpreting the trauma, we are stuck in that for the rest of our lives, which then makes us a prisoner in our adulthood. And the entire process of either doing therapy or actually going through the coaching process of Enneagram allows you to break out of that igloo and truly grow as a person where your heart, mind, and body are fully aware of how to process that trauma, how far you've come, and then how do you grow as a full person to use your entire being. We started with, we need to know who we are being. Our entire being is about my soul, right? The soul is the being and the body allows us to do the doing. So the soul in this body has a heart, mind, and body. How do we truly bring all of that to bear as a person? That is the journey of self-discovery. So if you ever have an opportunity to either go to a therapist or go and get yourself an Enneagram coach, please do so. Some of you here go through that process with me. So you know what I'm talking about. You've gone through that process. You're going through that process. And remember, this is not a journey any of us master. It is a journey we continue to take and take and take, because things that happen to us in our lives are different any given day, right? We have to constantly recalibrate, almost like a GPS, right? Our self-awareness journey is like a GPS system in your car. Every time we come upon something, we have to recalibrate and say, where did we take a detour? What do I need to right myself and get back on track to living my purpose, right? So I always relate a personal journey and an organization's journey to a GPS, because we need to recalibrate and get back to where we need to be, okay? And while I'm doing that, I need to be fully aware how I define my success, right? Ultimately, the human success is about wanting to be happy, right? Every human being wants to be happy, but how we define happiness is different. And if we don't deal with our childhood trauma first, we're going to define our happiness as the one thing that we thought helped us deal with the trauma. So if I came from poverty, I'm going to think money is going to make me happy. If I came from an abusive household, then I'm going to think that if I'm alone and everybody else left me alone, I'm going to be happy, right? So the first, even before we start identifying what is success to me, we need to first deal with our trauma. Otherwise, we are going to identify the false positive and then go after something that is not real. And then we will never be happy because we're never chasing that right thing. Okay? And what is going to make you happy and how you get there is also a journey we don't do alone, which is why self-awareness has to sit right side by side with social awareness. Human beings are never meant to be creatures of isolation, right? If nothing else, we need a dog, we need a cat, we need a bird, we need some creature, right? If nothing else, at least a big teddy bear or a pillow, right? We need that connection. So in our society, how do we build that for ourselves, for everybody else around? So I am going to open this up to all of you and engage in a dialogue. What's going on in your mind? What thoughts you have? What questions you have? Let's truly open this up. And as you speak, if you have any recommendation for books, anything you want other people to benefit from, please do so. Because this is truly our place of collaboration to help us all get to a point where we are better than where we started today.
Hey, Cass.
Yes, go ahead, Alejandro.
Alejandro here. Thanks for sharing. I think that there are some times I was writing to myself here when everybody was discussing about this self-awareness process that you go on a all recurring in frequent basis, right? Mm-hmm. And I have been kind of in the last 20 years in this production, and we were discussing the other day. But I was thinking about when they were discussing when you are alone, can you hear the silence, right? So can you really find yourself when you are alone? And I think that Marquell or David were saying, we have been in our house. I think that David was saying, we have been in our home, in our house, and we have our space, but we try to go into the production, but we don't get into the silence mode and try to refresh ourselves in what we are really trying to do, even when we are at home. So that's something that I was thinking about when I think that David was mentioning that. And the second thing for me is related with the trauma. As you were mentioning, I think that, and I would complement that with probably is trauma combined with things that you have seen probably in yourself or in your family in childhood from a even good way. I think that there are certain things that you believe you could see that your mom or dad or uncles were happy about. Not necessarily they were creating a trauma for you, but you were kind of aspiring that to do. And maybe that's the other thing that you also need to understand, basically, where's the balance between what you have seen that is good for you to because kind of a things with you, mm-hmm. or because it's something that you saw that could be meaning happening for somebody else. You need to understand it really is that what you need for you. Mm-hmm. So there's a balance there.
That's an excellent point. Just because you saw somebody else thrive and be happy and they were good at something, it's not going to be for us, but knowing that it has a place and it has a value. And that is an excellent point. Thank you so much for sharing that. Somebody has the mic not muted, so, okay.
Cass? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Someone else about to speak? No?
Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, sorry. So I want to go back on what you said about trauma too. It's like, that's a great unifier for all of us, right? We're at the end of the day, I keep hearing background, I don't know.
Yeah, somebody's having a conversation in the background. Go ahead.
I think that's a great unifier. I mean, I think that, like what I was saying before, we're all humans. We have to try to lift each other up and realize that we are all one and the same, even though we have our differences, that we can celebrate that we're each unique. But think about it, it's a proven fact, we've all gone through trauma. And that's another reason I try my best not to ever judge anybody, because you don't know what burden they're carrying at the moment. And you asked before, the million dollar question is, how do we get out of that negative self-talk? And I have something funny. It's like a funny little saying that might help. It goes, admit it, quit it, forget it. So when you catch yourself talking negatively in your head or saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, admit it to yourself, become aware, like, oh, I just realized I was talking negative. Then quit it. Stop it right in its tracks, forget it, move forward. Don't beat yourself up. Don't say, oh my gosh, I always do that. Why am I always so hard on myself? Because beating yourself up and staying in it is remaining negative. So just admit it, be aware, quit it, forget it, and move on. And I think that's the good stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you for that advice.
Thank you.
Dr. Klaus.
Yes, go ahead, Gigi.
So I just want to speak on what Ms. Kristen was talking about in reference to the education part. It reminds me of the book that I read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, education really, in a sense, it's important, but not that important. I mean, once you have the drive and everything, when it comes to your work, then you shouldn't really define what you're capable of. So that's probably the perfect example for me is that I worked with myself through high school, not through high school, through university to get my associate's degree. So I was working while in the school. So I was working in an insurance industry that entire time as an assistant to an agent. And eventually I didn't have my associate's degree at the moment. And while I was working with them, I was still learning. So everything I learned in terms of the insurance was what me as myself was looking at and, observing and stuff. So I got to the point that I actually became the agent. So I became an agent and associate's degree. So I understand that it doesn't really define what you're capable of doing. So that's one part that I kind of gathered from her.
That is such an important point to make, right? Learning doesn't have to happen within the walls of an institution. Okay? Learning is a process of assimilating information and processing it in a meaningful way to be able to use it in a purposeful way for our lives, right? And what is technically work? Work is about, the physics definition is actually using your energy to produce something, to have an outcome. And if you have an input that you're transforming through your skills and your capabilities to produce an outcome, you have worked, right? So nowhere in those definitions of economics or physics of work, a four walls of a university or a school or anything is there, right? So Marquell, you and I talk about this all the time. Education cannot be about read a book, regurgitate, take a test. I was taught to believe that education is what you remember 50 years after you left school. Okay? If education is not preparing you for life, maybe something's flawed in that education. Okay? Think about what's going on today. 6 months ago, if you had a device in class, the teacher would confiscate it. Today, your entire school is in that device. Okay? It's like karma coming back full circle to the teachers, right? And think about where the tenured professors are of universities. They were doing research and sending the TA to teach in class, right? Today they have to teach, and they have to teach using online technology when they haven't even been in the classroom that often. And because they were tenured, they didn't have the need to learn and grow. And now schools can't fire them, but they can't teach the students, right? Talk about the catch-22 educational institutions are. So the traditional learning is being questioned, it's been challenged. Forget about the people, a virus. A virus is questioning the basic paradigm of what education is, right? How are we learning? How are different parts of the world learning? And maybe there is some value in taking what's working for other people and bringing it in. Music is a good way to teach. When I'm in the classroom, I'm a graduate school professor, I'm teaching my students. My assignments are rarely written work, because where in the world do we write papers for work? Proving to me that you know to write a paper doesn't make me want to hire you, because I'm hiring in the workplace and I'm teaching in the classroom, right? So when I'm teaching, I'm always looking at the way I'm teaching. Am I grooming people to be ready to come work for me? If not, I am a lie. I'm living a lie. I am showing up there and taking a paycheck to live a lie, right? So that's counterproductive. My assignments are truly collaborative work, role plays. I actually have to do role plays and videotape and come and show it to class. Don't even talk about it. Show it to class. So if we're talking about organizational behavior, organizational change, develop a real life scenario and play out. Corporate training, that's how we do, right? We don't ask anybody to write papers in the business world. Why are we doing it in school? So some people can creatively talk about a topic in music. Some people can actually use creative art and truly graphically depict what the solution should be, right? Are we giving all of those opportunities for self-expression in the classroom so that we're allowing people to grow? And that is truly part of social emotional learning. Because otherwise we're telling people, if you cannot write like Shakespeare, you're dumb, right? And because you didn't get an A, you're not going to make it in the world. We don't hire for A's. The working world doesn't hire for A's. But somehow young people are being told this in the classroom, right? So I'm glad you brought that up. Learning happens in life. Marquell talked about how he learned through travel, right? Traveling is the biggest learner of experience, because you see the world through somebody else's eyes. Thank you for sharing that, Gigi. Any other thoughts, any questions, any insights? Go ahead. Go ahead, Alexa.
So how you said school is very important and getting the A's pretty much tells you that you're good at something and you're going to succeed. And what I want to touch on is kind of what's going a little bit backwards from that is a lot of that starts in the home environment based off of how your parents view what they think is good. And for me, school is very important. So if you got A's, we got rewarded, and I never did good in school. So I kind of, just as you're writing or as you're saying this, I was beginning to see how that has really been the background for my life, and thinking that if I'm not good in school, I'm not going to be successful in anything else. I didn't go to college. I barely passed high school, and I mean literally barely. So I think it definitely goes into the home life as well as how the school systems are set up, and I think that needs to change all in all, going back to the home life, or at least the way of thinking for you specifically.
And that is such an important and sensitive issue you touch on, Alexa, because depending on the background and culture of your parents, they really push you, right? I'm South Asian. We come from a culture where if I got 98 points, we got a hard time for missing those 2 points, okay? You can't have all the points all the time, but that is the culture, right? Asian parents are very hard. If your parents are first generation immigrants, they're really hard on you, because from their perspective, they've sacrificed everything and come here to give you a good life, and all you have to do is study, and why can't you study, right? That's the one question they keep asking, but maybe traditional studying is not your thing, or maybe your teacher doesn't understand you. Because remember, in school, teachers teach only to one segment of the class. They don't teach to the smartest kid, the kids who are catching up on the subject quick. They're not teaching to them. They're not teaching to the young people who are struggling. They're teaching to the middle, right? I was very lucky when I went to school. I'm from Sri Lanka, so I went to school in Sri Lanka. We have the Montessori system, and we learn by doing. So I was introduced to math in a kitchen at 3 years old. They gave us a cookie recipe and told us to double it. Now, if you can eat your math, and it came in the form of cookies, who wouldn't love math, right? In my part of the world, we love math. I come here and I'm teaching grad school, And I teach US military and public safety professionals who are leaders in their profession coming for their master's program. They come to the classroom for accounting and finance. I swear they think they're going to get shot. And I'm like, you go to war. Why are you so scared? And they're like, we hate math, Dr. Henry. So I don't understand it. It took me a long time to understand it because that's not how I was taught math, right? What if we made school play? I mean, if education was fun, people will embrace it, right? Even to learn to write letters. We have 249 letters in my language, by the way. When I learned English, I thought 26 was what they're going to teach us the first day, and then the next day there was going to be 26 more. And they said, no, that's it. English only has 26. And I'm like, really? And because there was 249, there's no way to memorize. They put us in a sandbox and gave us a cardboard with the alphabet written and cut on sandpaper, and we had to trace it with our finger to feel what the alphabet felt like. Okay, we sound the word and write it with our 2 fingers, right? And then they take the boards and they make us write and teach each other inside the sandbox. Right? That's how we learn to write. And when we learned physics, when we learned chemistry, all of that was introduced as play. Physics was you're playing out with your friends and you have all these little things that you found in the yard. How can you conduct an experiment to prove to your friends sound carries through solid? So how do you take everything and build a telephone? You're being creative, right? So creativity is not stifled. Play is not stifled. And if we can make education fun, that's one thing, right? And then don't tell kids that you're good, you're bad, you're stupid, you're smart. That is also bad. Because it's not just the kids who are told they're stupid or they're dumb who are suffering. The kids who are told they're smart, they're also suffering because when they go to college, when they go to work, they don't feel smart anymore. We've really ruined everybody by telling these things and putting labels on them. The way we were taught is we all had to sit in the middle of 2 students that we can help. And I had a Muslim classmate who spoke Arabic at home, so her Tamil wasn't very good. And therefore she struggled in class, not because she wasn't bright. She had a language barrier. And I had a Catholic girl on the other side. They spoke English at home, but we didn't study in English. So I taught both these girls. To this day, they say I'm a teacher because of them, and I give them all the credit. And what happened? I am the kind of kid, if I got bored, I'll start singing and whistling in class. I was so disruptive, I guess I didn't even realize, right? And so the way they dealt with me is not put me on medication. If I were in America, they would have labeled me ADD, ADHD, every alphabet in the alphabet step, right? But here they made me sit between 2 classmates and actually help them. And I had to find creative ways to explain things to them because we had language barriers. I remember teaching my classmates, I took them to the kitchen and took all the baking trays and baking stuff. And I taught them the cross-section of the skin by using the baking pan as the actual cut of the skin, the ladle as the hair follicle, and we constructed like a Lego game, looking at the picture, constructed what skin would look like, and then we drew what we had constructed. Now, because it was something we like to do and we cook and we play, it was a concept we could understand, right? How do we creatively start looking at things differently? And as we become parents, how can we break the cycle of what we didn't appreciate or what didn't work for us, right? I mean, there's no point turning around and blaming parents because I think everybody did the best they could, the best way they knew how. Nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to be a total jackass and I'm going to make my child's life miserable or my students' lives miserable. Everybody took what they knew and did the best with it, right? True, they didn't have control over their emotions because they probably didn't take time to become self-aware, right? They didn't go and look at alternatives because they were stressed and they were juggling multiple jobs and trying to raise a family. So all of that is true. So instead of blaming somebody, right, how do we take this upon ourselves? Okay, what has happened has happened. I've grown from that. I've become a better person because of that. How do I then take my journey of self-awareness and then transform myself to be different and better and more meaningful so that I break the cycle? Because without the journey of the self-awareness and social awareness, we will never break the cycle. And that's the danger, right? We all, the joke is that we all become our parents, right? And I pray that I don't, right? I tell my husband, if I ever sound like this or this, just shoot me, right? It's not that we don't love them, but we also know why it didn't work, right? Because we got to be the other person watching it. And so I always say I want to make a different mistake. I don't want to make the mistakes my parents made. I want to learn and grow from it. And if I make a mistake, I want to make my own mistake, right? So Alexa, you bring up such a wonderful point that we all have to be conscious of and be very mindful of not perpetuating.
Hey, Cass.
Yes, Alejandro.
One thing I was thinking when you were discussing this, or Alexa was saying, and actually I was thinking about that because I think that I told you that I have been with my dad now 5 months now in my house, and the funny thing is that for many years my kids grew up in the U.S. and 4 years ago we came back to the country in Chile, but they had not been interacting with my dad. So basically, they grew up without parents, and all of a sudden they have a grandpa in the house. And we have been kind of in this process of what you were saying. So my dad telling me all the stories on why he did this or why he did that when I was young, and you see sometimes repeating yourself those kind of behaviors with your kids, but also as we have these cultural differences with. This grandparent that lived all the time in Chile. We have kids that grew up at least the first 10 years of their life in the US, and they're bringing that culture, and we're kind of in the middle point. So there are two things that for me pop up when we were discussing this, and I think it's an open question. Is one, I don't want to repeat, but at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to break the cycle. But because you are part of the cycle, right? So even you have your own paradigms, so it's difficult to understand basically that you are doing that without conscious, repeating the cycle as well. So it's really hard to kind of break that and not be sure that you're not doing the same with the kids. And the second one is also, as I have my 12 and 14 years old daughters, we are trying to get them in the pace of the online education, and I'm also trying to get them into the self-awareness, but I'm not really sure, and it's all the time learning that I'm doing it right. So it's how you create the self-awareness for them, what is right for them, what is really important for them, because it's part of their equation. But I don't want them to get up to 20 to start thinking about this. I want them today to start thinking about that and give them their time without trying to interfere in their thought process. So it's kind of a hard balance there.
That is an excellent question, because you're coming from the perspective of a straddle generation of an immigrant family, right? As well as how do you then parent? One of the books I have found helpful for everybody, regardless of age, is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's a very easy to read book. It comes with an assessment, and everybody can take the assessment to see how you are doing. And then it allows you to build your changes yourself, and then go back and reevaluate every 3 months, every 6 months, okay? And it actually gives you tips on what are the elements you need to be mindful of and what are the tricks you can follow to overcome some of the challenges. I know that's the book we have used at work when I did your training, Alejandro. So Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is easily readable. So if you're a 14, 15, 16-year-old child, you can read it. If you are English, proficient, right? And because they grew up in America, they should be able to read it. I am not sure if there is a Spanish translation, but we can look into that. The other thing is truly, there's nothing better than engaging with children in a conversation. The foreign cultures do this very well. A meal is an event. It is not just shovel down your mouth and run. And the meal time is the best time for the family to engage in conversation. It cannot be, how was your day? Fine, and then move on, because that's the regular American conversation, right? That is not the conversation. And parents have to be able to share what's going on with them and ask. Sometimes you have to start from yourself. Here is what mommy had to deal with today. And what should I have done? Or what advice would you have for me? How would you interpret this situation? Because I like the way you think. You don't think like me. Instead of telling them they don't think like you and it's bad, tell them, I know you don't think like me, and therefore you're going to see this from a different perspective. Tell me how you see this. Tell me what you would do different. I always get told that young people are comfortable with me. They'll call me before they call their own mother. And sometimes mothers get upset that I'm stealing their child. And I tell them, actually, no, they love you and they don't want to disappoint you because you want them to be a certain way, and therefore they can't have this conversation with you. So don't misinterpret why they are coming to me. But if you truly want them to come to you, then treat them like an adult. Treat them in a way that you respect their mind and the way they think. Respect the way they feel. You can't tell anybody what to feel, right? Whether it's a child or a parent, they feel what they feel. So respect that and come from a point of seeking to understand, and then the conversation starts. And it may be very forced in the beginning, but over time, it becomes a comfortable rhythm. And being a straddle generation, sometimes that is a no-win situation, right? I came to America, I brought my parents over. For them, nothing here is ever going to be right. Right? And I don't have kids, but I see my friends with kids. The children think that parents have no relevance because they have an accent. They act like they're in a different country. Oh, this is not cool. I once had an intern, a Korean American girl I hired recruited from Champaign. And I had taken a walk for lunch. I was at Aeon, taking a walk at the Millennium Park. And my friend Tam and I, she was on my team, we saw this old Korean couple crying right outside the office at Aeon. And I couldn't walk by when I saw two old people sobbing. So I stopped by and asked what's going on. We had them sit down at the quadrangle. We thought somebody got sick. We had to take them to the hospital or something. And they started sobbing and said they were so happy their daughter got an internship at their company. But when they came to see the daughter and see the office, she told them not to come in because she's ashamed to be seen with her. That broke my heart. So we said, forget lunch. Tam and I cleared them through security. I was the CFO for the unit, so I cleared them through security. I took them up. And we introduced them to everybody and made sure they were made to feel good. Because they sacrificed everything. They were older parents who had a child after coming to America. So the daughter was born and raised in America. And afterwards, we had to sit down, and I had to sit down and talk to the young lady. You do not treat your parents that way. Because you're going to have clients who are from another planet. You respect everybody for who they are. You do not judge them, right? So it is not easy in that situation because everybody feels that the other is an alien, literally an alien, right? And 3 generations can't relate to one another. And that is hard because a lot of times I've been in a medical situation where it's the 5-year-old who's translating because the parents don't speak English. So the medical decisions are being made by the child who's speaking English. All of a sudden, this child thinks that he or she can boss the parents, right? So all these situations are created because of the way society is. But this is where outsiders have to become aware and be a part of helping that family, right? We can't take this journey alone. We have to step in and help each other. And so what I have seen work, Alejandro, in those situations is bringing in help and bringing in similar situational elements on the reverse for the parents and the children to see that this is symptomatic of how life is, right? Especially today, all the people working from home, if anything happens to technology, they're calling the kids, right? Come fix this. So kids think now you're helping your parents do their job, right? How do we keep these conversations going so that it's really not a hierarchy? We all have a role to play. And how do those roles get played in a way that we show up as a team? Just because now every sport we play has a position, right? I'm going to pick baseball because that's the closest to cricket, right? Just because I'm the pitcher doesn't mean I'm not part of the team. Just because I play first base doesn't mean I am any better or any worse. We all have a role to play. But only when we play as a team, we're even going to be able to show up for the game, right? So how do we show up for the game as a team? And who is on my team is the question. That would be the best practical life-based experience guidance I can give Alejandra. Any other thoughts?
It's been a while. Pretty excited. I'm definitely hyped up right now with everything you guys said in regards to education and all that, because I don't like school. I hate math. I hate physics. I slept through most of those classes, but Dr. Cass, I would love to learn all of those from you because I like cookies. So, yeah, I had a quote to share, and I've had this for a couple of years now. And my journey with self-awareness, self-love has been an ongoing journey, but it has been consistent since July 4th. And there has been extreme changes happening in my life so far, and I'm so excited for it. However, I know this quote will add to it because it says, we're all in the same game, just different levels, fighting the same battle, just different doubles. And I just felt like that had to go in there. And yeah, you guys have me hyped up. You guys have me excited. Definitely looking forward to pursuing more of what to do with my talents and my skill instead of going for that regular 9 to 5, which nothing is wrong with that, but I feel like I'm more on the side of the creative side. So
yeah.
Pure Alchemy, David, Kristen, you guys got me hyped up, and I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you so much for that, Adrienne. And I love the fact that we're all fighting different demons, but we're still fighting, right? So there is no harm in showing up and helping each other. Any closing thoughts, comments from anybody? Go ahead, Kristen.
Yeah, so I love everything that was being said, and I was trying to write your quote, Ariane, really quick, but I almost lost it. Alexa, when you were speaking, I could feel like, you know, when I was talking about environmental constraints or limitations, so I feel like when you were saying your parents had an expectation of you to really excel and succeed in school, if you didn't meet that expectation, you almost took that as like a blow to your self-worth. Like, I can't, you know, but you are worth it, girl. You have your place in this world, and school does not define you. And just if I could really quickly, and I hope I'm not taking up too much time, but I want to share 2 personal experiences that I've had. Mm-hmm. I was 21 years old and I had just quit college. Again, I was a straight A student through high school. I won several scholarships, and out of my whole entire graduating class, the teachers picked one student that was their favorite, and it was me. So when I decided, and it was actually because of like being told I had to, what you said, Shakespeare, it was like a poetry class that put me over the edge. Like writing an 8-page paper on a 2-page poem, I was like, this is not for me. So I decided I wasn't going to do college anymore, and I believed in myself enough that I knew I would figure it out. But sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. It was a scary decision, but it was nothing I even expected from myself, being a straight A student and the one that all the teachers thought was going to get a master's or a PhD. So I quit college. I started working at this nice corporation that was local to where I lived, And I was like an admin assistant. I'd order office supplies. I'd, deliver packages. It was really fun. And one day, this woman, she was like the accounting manager. She said, Kristen, there's an opening in accounts payable in finance, and I think you'd be an awesome fit. I want you to apply. And I clammed up and I got so scared, and I was like, I've never been good at math. Like, yes, I, graduated with a straight A's, but it was so difficult for me. I hate math, X, Y, and Z. That doesn't make sense to me. No. And she was like, stop. It's not what the math you did in high school. Those were her exact words. She's like, I promise you, you can do this. And I think about that woman all the time because I'm 37 years old now. So 16 years later, I still work in finance in the corporate world. And I am grateful that she broke down those barriers in my mind. Again, self-limiting thoughts that told me I'll never have a career in finance. I can't do math. I'm doing great. And I'm not just saying this, but I have won accolades and awards in every corporation I've been in. So you can do it. And talking about pursuing something that makes you happy. And I also have a very creative side. So even though I've been in the corporate worlds and I do finance and I love numbers and I love people, but for my day job, I actually like numbers because they don't talk back and they don't give opinions and, it's cut and dry. I don't really have to worry about what they are thinking. So, but on the outside, my personality is I'm very creative. So my sister and I always had a dream since we were little kids. She's a hairdresser and we used to always say that I was the makeup artist and we wanted to own a salon. So in 2009, I was working in my corporate job doing finance, and I decided I'm going to go for fun because I just have an interest in makeup, and I'm going to go to school to learn aesthetics. So I became a certified esthetician in my state. Unfortunately, my state is the only one that doesn't license, but if they did, I'd be a licensed esthetician. So I can do your skincare, your makeup, and all of that. I did it for fun. I just wanted to do it because it's a passion of mine and it's something that excites me. And I do, my friends and family's makeup for weddings or whatever. But what I did that year, in the next year, 2010, the holidays, November and December, you know what I did? Working corporate during the day, I went to Sephora, the makeup store, and I said, I'd like to work here for the holidays. I have a day job, but I'll do nights and weekends. I just want to see what it's all about. I want to just use my creativity and, make a little money for the holidays, got me out of the house, got me talking to people and using my creative side since the numbers don't talk during the day. And I got to tell you, it was one of the best experiences of my life. It was tiring running from my 8 to 5 to another job, but it was so amazing because I made connections, I made relationships, and you know what? It wasn't my bread and butter. It wasn't the job that was paying my bills. So I was so free flowing. I was all myself because I had no constraints. I wasn't worried. I was like, I was giving real advice. I was building real relationships with people. I would tell them, well, if you can't afford every product I want to tell you about, spend your money on these two and go to CVS and get this product because it's just as good. And that built trust, and I wasn't scared, management is going to be mad, because at the end of the day, I made lots of sales for Sephora, lots of them. And then I had repeat customers come back because they trusted me because I was being real with them and authentic. And then Sephora actually made out well because with the discount I got, I spent the whole paycheck there anyway. But I just think it's so important, you can have your day job, but still find ways to pursue other things. There was several years time where I was also working corporate before I did the Sephora thing because that was only for 2 months. But I worked at the dry cleaners locally. It was what I did in high school. And the family that owned it became my second family. So when they would go on vacation or need extra help, they'd be like, can you help us? So funny story, many years I worked corporate Monday through Friday. And on Saturdays, I went to the dry cleaners and I worked for them for a few hours, 8 to 3 or something. It was perfect. I got all my fancy work clothes cleaned for free. And then I had fun. I loved it there. They were my family. And also it taught me how to run a small business. I learned a lot because if I really truly want to have a salon one day with my sister, those skills I learned were invaluable. But guess what is so funny too? Now the corporation I'm at, because it's all local, I've actually handled the dirty laundry of many of those executives. So when I showed up there 4 years ago, a lot of them recognized me and they're like, I know you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm from the dry cleaners. So yeah, it's pretty funny, but how things come together. But that's all I'd like to say. But thanks for all of everything that everybody shared. I really enjoyed being a part of this.
Thank you for sharing the stories and insight. I appreciate that. Marquell, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. I had a great time today, and thank you for everyone sharing. I would just say the opposite side of the battle, Cass, you kind of talked about it earlier, but that imposter syndrome. When we say, wait, is this really who we are? Is this really what we're doing? Am I capable? Am I good enough to do this? You are. And that's, people are going to come and situations are going to present themselves that's going to challenge you. So I think, again, the most important thing is finding the tools in the world, learning how you can apply them to your foundation, then build your home.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Marquell. And I truly appreciate everybody courageously sharing, because today's topic is something that we can only share in a safe space. And thank you for creating that space of safety and security so that we can talk about it and show up as our authentic selves. One of the things I advise everybody to do, I do this for myself as a daily practice. In the mornings when you're dressed up and you're looking your best, continue to look into the mirror and just tell your name, I'm Kasturi Henry, and I know I'm enough. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not enough.
You went on mute, Cass. You're still on mute, Cass.
I don't know why it keeps doing that.
There you go.
Okay, so you are enough. You're going to go out there and live your authentic self to your fullest, and you are going to make a difference not only for yourself, but to the rest of the world out there. And keep believing that. And if you need a pep talk, you know who all you met here, you know this is a safe place, and you can reach back here because this community is here for you. Okay, this is our community. We're building this community for us. Next week, we're going to talk about how do we build from our awareness to our relationships. We're going to talk about how do I continue to build a relationship so that I love myself and I accept myself and I manage myself. Okay, and then only what I have I can give other people. Then from there, how do I draw and give it and build relationships that are meaningful and lasting? Okay, so please join us back for that conversation. We would love to continue this on an ongoing basis every Saturday. If there are any specific topics that are going to be meaningful to you, please send me an email. My email is listed here. All we want to do is every opportunity we have conversations in a respectful, responsible way to help each of us go out there and live our purposeful life. Keep in mind that every human interaction is an opportunity for our transformation. So go out there, transform lives, and please remember to start with your own, because you are worth it. Thank you very much.